The truth occurs. The truth occurs.
Hi everyone. I'd like to give you an update about what's going on in my hometown right here in Montreal. We've been having a kind of upheaval. Montreal's been in upheaval for a few months. Well, there were the Occupy protests that started last fall. And then it went into the tuition hike protests. And it's gotten really huge. I mean, we're having like tens of thousands of people protesting every day. They're meeting every night at Park Emily Gamelin down at Barrie, and this is getting huge. The riot squads are coming in. The protesters have been doing things like setting off smoke bombs in the metro and other stuff like that. People have gotten hurt. We've been having a lot going on here, and I hear these helicopters every night, which tells me that they're out there on the streets. And so, as I said, this has to do with tuition hikes, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And I'm going to try to show you a bit about why the tuition hikes are really just kind of the symptom of a much deeper problem. Oh, well, what are you complaining about? Do you have the lowest tuition in Canada? We do, and the increase is actually small. It's something like $231. Let's just hike the tuition a little bit. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is the big picture. This is Plan Nord, building northern Quebec together, the project of a generation of corporate elite and their government cronies, I guess. I've talked to you before about what part of our problem is here and why we're so broke and just going to get broker is that our governments are borrowing debt-backed currency from private banks at interest. And so all these taxes that we're paying are going to repay this interest on this debt, which is just about impossible to do. And the other thing that they're doing is they're selling us out to corporations. And that's why you see things like this in the news. Innu Council campaigns against Plan Nord. Raphael Picard, the chief of the Pessamit Innu band, is trying to denounce what he calls the province's bad faith bargaining. Because what the province is doing is selling the Inuit land, which really belongs to the Inuit, to these corporations, which I hear this involves, for some reason, a Chinese corporation. This corporation gets this land and they kick all the native peoples off the land. And they're asking for $5 billion in compensation over the next 50 years. And the government is saying, that's ridiculous. We'll give you $350 million. And this is the kind of thing they do. I mean, they're doing this to these Aboriginal peoples up north, but they do it to other people all the time. I'll give you an example. She lives in Gaspésie, a friend of mine, and on her family's land was found fresh, perfect, pure water. And so the government said, we need to take your land away so that we can, use the water for the benefit of the whole town. What they did was they kicked them off their land. They gave them almost nothing for it. And then what the government did was they sold it to a private company who started bottling water on it and selling it to the people in the town. That's corporatism. So they're doing this all the time. They're privatizing our land and our resources and selling it to multinational corporations. And also, you might want to check this out. This is a documentary film called Seeking the Current, Chercher le Courant. It's about Hydro-Quebec setting up shop on the Romaine River, and why this is absolutely no good. Well, for one thing, what they do is they'll go up there into this pristine nature. They'll dam the river, and they won't make any money off it. They'll sell it to the U.S. for less than it costs them to produce this power, and then to compensate for that, they'll pick our pockets with taxes and raising the cost of electricity. And the reason I'm telling you this is that this is part of the bigger picture. That this is why we're so broke here, because our government's totally corrupt, and they're doing these kinds of things, and that's where our money's going. I mean, they keep picking our pockets and picking our pockets, but it's because of the way that they're managing the country or the province, the way that they're selling us out to corporations and borrowing from private banks. And so it's like a hole that you can never fill. And so the students are protesting against the tuition hikes, and people are saying, what's the big deal? It's just a few $100. You're so spoiled. But and I'm not a huge fan of protesting in general, but I do see the point that if you say, okay, raise the tuition, that's fine. That's like saying, okay, keep putting us in debt because you're borrowing from private banks and keep selling us out to corporations and keep picking our pockets. That's the bottom line. And that's why I'm very proud of the Quebec activists for having a lot of guts and a lot of spirit, a lot of fighting spirit, and for not backing down. So I'm not a huge fan of protests, but I'm not really sure what else they could be doing. So what do you think is the solution to this? What could they be doing that would be productive to end, corporatism and corruption in the government of Quebec? As much as, like I say, I'm not a huge fan of protesting, but I do appreciate that they're not backing down. They're not saying, yeah, okay, it's all right, keep making the rich richer and keep taxing us for it, because that's what's really happening. Keep selling us out. So that's my update on what's going on, and thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.